A new type of investment account for kids is coming. They're called Trump accounts. They could become another option for parents and grandparents who want to start building wealth for the next generation. So today, I want to walk through what Trump accounts are, how they work, and when they might actually make sense to use. And because the name of these accounts has to do with Donald Trump, a highly polarizing president, let me just say that I'm not trying to endorse or comment on anything political. Both parties push new tax agendas through Congress, and it's my job as a financial planner to tell you your options. Love or hate Trump, here's what the deal is. So let's dive in. Under the proposed legislation, the One Big Beautiful Act, or OBBBA, a new type of IRA-like account will be created for minors starting in 2026. These accounts will be treated similarly to a traditional IRA, but with several key differences while the beneficiary is under age 18. The first notable feature is that every eligible child could receive $1,000 of seed money from the government. Parents would make an election on their tax return, and that $1,000 would be deposited into a Trump account established for the child. However, eligibility is fairly narrow. The child must be a U.S. citizen, born between 2025 and 2028, and must qualify as a dependent child of the taxpayer making the election. If you have a child or maybe a grandchild that was born in 2025 or will be born in 2028, they will receive $1,000 of free seed money. They are technically tagging this as a tax refund. It won't affect your taxes or refund on your 1040, but this is how they are categorizing it, which is also why you need to complete IRS Form 4547 when you file or do it online, and I'll show you how to do this later. The legislation only allocates $410 million to fund the program. For context, the U.S. averages about 3.5 million births every year, so unless additional funding is added, there's a good chance the program will eventually need income limits, geographic restrictions, or other eligibility rules. If you decide to do this, I would try to be one of the first people to sign up. Even if you don't have a child or grandchild who was born or will be born between 2025 and 2028, you still might want to get an account opened. Michael and Susan Dell donated $6.25 billion, which will put $250 into accounts to kids in specific low-income areas. There will probably be more folks who will do this, and they just haven't designated which areas will be chosen. You might just want to open one and see if some money gets plopped in. Now, let's talk about how the accounts would actually work. While the child is under age 18, the account can only be invested in eligible investments, which are essentially low-cost U.S. stock index funds, which I'm a fan of and think this will actually benefit a lot of folks. So the goal here is clearly long-term investing rather than speculation. In addition to the government seed money, additional contributions can be made by parents, relatives, including grandparents, businesses, nonprofits, and even government entities. These contributions must be made after tax, meaning they are not deductible, and there is a $5,000 annual contribution limit per child. That limit will start adjusting for inflation in 2028. So mom and dad can give $1,000, Uncle Joe can give $1,000, and grandma and grandpa can give $3,000. One important detail is that the contributions cannot begin until July 4th, 2026. Another interesting feature is that these contributions do not count towards the limits of any other IRA accounts. So even if someone has already maxed out retirement contributions elsewhere, they could still fund a Trump account for a child. And similar to a 529 or UTMA account, the contributions are subject to gift tax limits if made by anyone other than the child. So the annual gift exclusion for 2026 is $19,000 per person. So if you gave $15,000 already to your grandkids 529, then you can only give $4,000 to this Trump account without having to dip into your lifetime exclusion. Employers are also allowed to contribute. Starting in 2026, employers may contribute up to $2,500 per year into a Trump account for an employee or the employee's dependent child. And if those contributions are made under a written plan, that $2,500 is excluded from the employee's income. However, employer contributions do count towards the $5,000 annual contribution limit. Now, these funds in the accounts cannot be withdrawn until the child turns 18. They are locked up until then. Some may complain about this, but I see this as a benefit. Letting compound interest work for you over many, many years is the very best thing that you can do. At 18, distributions are generally taxed the same way traditional IRA withdrawals are taxed. But the tax treatment is a little more complicated because not all contributions are treated the same way. Contributions from parents or relatives are made with after-tax dollars, so those contributions themselves would not be taxed again when withdrawn. However, the following contributions will be taxable when withdrawn: the $1,000 government seed contribution and any employer contributions. So keeping track of the basis in the account will be important. So again, distributions of basis are tax-free. Earnings are taxed as ordinary income. Distributions will be treated as pro rata distributions of basis and earnings. So if you contributed $5,000 and the account grows to $20,000 and your kid takes $10,000 out at age 18 to help buy a car, 5 divided by 20 is 25%. So $2,500 of the $10,000 will be tax-free, and the remaining $7,500 will be taxed as ordinary income. The funds can also be rolled over into an IRA account at age 18. There's also a special rule that allows rollovers to ABLE accounts. If a beneficiary has a disability, funds can be rolled from a Trump account into an ABLE account during the year the child turns 18 without triggering taxes. When you look at the overall structure, Trump accounts are interesting, but they may not always be the best option. That's because contributions are not tax deductible and earnings are still taxable when withdrawn. Compare that to other accounts. For example, a 529 plan allows investments to grow tax-free if used for education. A Roth IRA allows investments to grow tax-free for retirement, assuming the child has earned income. And a regular UTMA account, which is basically a taxable brokerage account for minors, will get capital gain treatment on earnings, and there's no contribution limits or restrictions on investments. In many cases, those accounts may provide better tax advantages. However, Trump accounts do have one unique feature. Contributions made to them do not affect the contribution limits of other IRAs, and distributions are not aggregated with other IRA accounts. So for families who have already maxed out 529 plans or Roth IRA opportunities, a Trump account could provide another bucket to build wealth for the next generation. And if you have a child born between 2025 and 2028, then you might get $1,000 of free money. That's free money. Now, how do you open a Trump account? You simply go to trumpaccounts.gov, click the Get Started button, complete some personal information, and hit submit. You're going to have to wait until July 4th, 2026, so this summer, until you can actually make a contribution. Or you can fill out Form 4547 on your tax return when you file. So overall, Trump accounts could become another tool for building long-term wealth for kids. But like most things in the tax code, the real value will depend on how they compare with other strategies already available. For many families, 529 plans and Roth IRAs may still be the first place to look. But once those options are maximized, this could become another useful planning tool for parents and grandparents. As always, the key is understanding how each account fits into your overall plan.